Today, I introduce you to Photoshop and the brightness contrast adjustment layer. We need to open up a photo, so we're going to go to Bridge, go to your folder over in Favorites, and you can select a picture from your GTKYC or from 24 views. And I'm going to pick this image to adjust. It doesn't matter which image you pick one that you like. And you're going to double click on this image and it will automatically open up in Photoshop. So this is what we have for Photoshop. I like to make this window big. And if you see, I grabbed a hold of the lower right-hand corner to drag that and make that bigger so it fills the screen. Over on the left, these are Photoshop tools. The tool that you will use probably the most is this tool right here, which is the brush tool. And this is the crop tool. And across the top, these are the settings for the tool that you have selected. So right now, the crop tool is selected, and it's telling me that I'm going to crop to a width of 10 inches by 8 inches. If I change to the brush tool, it is telling me that this is my brush size, the mode is normal, and my opacity is 55. So this is just the settings for the tool you have selected on the left. Across the top, you have your normal file, program, menu selections. And down the right, these are the panels that you're going to use in Photoshop. Probably the panel you're going to use the most is Layers. If yours does not look like this, if your panels don't look like this, I want you to go up here to Window, Workspace, and we're going to reset photography. And if anything had gotten messed up, you can reset photography, the photography workspace, by going to Windows, Workspace, Reset Photography. And then that's going to give you the same view every time. So that's a basic introduction to Photoshop. Now we are going to learn the first adjustment, which is your brightness contrast adjustment. It's right here. It's a sun that's half black, half white. I'm going to click on that. And that opens up the brightness contrast sliders. And I'm also going to open up Layers. I'm going to move this down here. And go back to Adjustments. The layers, you can see right here is my brightness contrast adjustment layer. This right here is called a mask. And we'll talk more about that later, but this is called a mask. This is the adjustment layer. I want to make that slider of brightness contrast come back, so I'm going to double click, and that brings the adjustment layer to the front. Now I want you to adjust the brightness. I want you to adjust it all the way to the right so you can see how bright it is, and all the way to the left. I want to go back to 0. I'm going to highlight this. Now I'm going to adjust contrast so I can see what it looks like. This is very high contrast. This is very low contrast. Contrast is your difference between the highlights or whites and the blacks or dark areas of your photo. You want to have enough contrast so your picture is not muddy, but you don't want to have too much contrast. If your picture is very dark, when you take it from your SD card and bring it into Photoshop, if it is very dark, that is called underexposed. And you can fix that by sliding the brightness up and making your picture brighter. So for this picture, I'm going to increase my brightness and I'm going to increase the contrast slightly, and that looks nice. So you want to usually bring up the brightness if your picture is underexposed or too dark. If your picture was too bright, you could bring the brightness down. So I want you to adjust your image until it looks good. You want a good balance of brightness and contrast. And that is the brightness adjustment layer and an introduction to Photoshop.